finally had enough of Emma Watson, who was, super woke and, one of the useful idiots also on things like Gaza. And so, which tells you something that her views on Gaza were just as crazy, I think, as her views on, on the women thing.
You know that moment when someone finally snaps, not in anger, but from sheer exhaustion with hypocrisy. That's exactly what happened when J.K. Rowling reached her limit with Emma Watson's carefully curated woke persona. And frankly, it was long overdue. Rowling, the woman who built the very universe that launched Watson into superstardom, decided she wasn't going to sit quietly through another sanctimonious lecture from someone who's never faced the real-world struggles she constantly preaches about. And before we dive in, if this already sounds familiar, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Because by the end of this, you're going to have something to say. So here's how it unfolded. Bill Maher, a man who's made a career out of puncturing celebrity self-importance, turned his spotlight on Emma Watson. And when Maher locks in, it's never gentle. His takedown wasn't just funny, it was precise. He sliced straight through the contradictions, exposing the gap between moral posturing and lived reality. Then Rowling fired back, and not with a vague, PR-approved apology thread. No, she went straight for the hypocrisy. She pointed out the absurdity of Watson lecturing women about safety and rights while enjoying elite security and privilege most women will never know. Rowling summed it up bluntly. When Emma uses a public bathroom, there's a bodyguard outside the door. When Rowling was her age, she was at home writing the book that made Emma famous.
Finally had enough of Emma Watson, who was, super woke and, one of the useful idiots also on things like Gaza. And so, which tells you something that her views on Gaza were just as crazy, I think, as her views on, on the women thing. And, J.K. Rowling was just unmerciful. She was like, well, this is not an issue for you because when you go into a public bathroom, you have a bodyguard who stands outside the door, And she talked about how, when I was your age, I didn't have all this privilege that you're always so hateful. I was home working on the book that made you a star. It was, she just wasn't having it anymore.
Yeah. You do get to a point where, and I think on a lot of issues, I'm at that point where you're just sick of the BS on both sides.
And that right there is perspective. Rowling wasn't just defending herself. She was calling out a truth people prefer to ignore. It's easy to sound righteous when you're insulated from consequences. Maher, of course, loved it. He took Rowling's already sharp words and turned them into a masterclass in comedic clarity. He didn't just repeat her argument, he elevated it. Sarcasm, hard truths, and that unmistakable finally someone said it energy. That's Maher's strength. He strips celebrity virtue signaling down to its bare absurdity. And let's be honest, Hollywood makes it easy.
So tripped up by their own ultra-orthodox ideology that they think that makes them a better person, to be so counterintuitive about all these issues like this, that this makes them the good people, that they're way out ahead on this issue. And you're not, and it's not what people want, and it goes against human nature, and it's not helping. You want to champion women, and you didn't. You did the opposite.
I know, because there's the hierarchy.
You made them uncomfortable,
no,
and
100%,
unnecessarily.
100%. Look,
in many ways.
This is where Maher's brilliance really shows. He doesn't just mock, he dissects. He exposes how good intentions turn destructive when they lose contact with reality. You claim to champion women, yet your ideology erases the very definition of womanhood. Congratulations. You've gone in a full circle. Maher was clear about one thing: this isn't about denying transgender people dignity or rights. He said plainly that transgender individuals deserve respect and fair treatment. But he also stated what many are afraid to say: balance matters. Supporting transgender rights doesn't require abandoning women's safety, fairness, or biological reality. Those ideas are not enemies. They should coexist.
I respect transgender people. I do not want to treat them like the others. I want them to have rights. I want them to be treated with dignity and respect.
Exactly.
At the same time, I also know what it's like to be a woman, living in a state where we've decided self-ID makes the most sense. Okay, well, self-ID doesn't make the most sense.
No.
Because obviously, as you and I both know, there are all sorts of predators out there who are going to take advantage of that situation. And that's already happened, right? So there was that big WeSpa story. And it turned out that the so-called transgender woman who was allowed into the women's locker room at a Korean spa in downtown LA was not actually a transgender person, was a person who had a long record of, sexual exploitation and assault or whatever.
That balance became painfully clear in the infamous WeSpa incident in Los Angeles. A person claiming transgender identity entered a women's locker room, and when a female patron objected, she was instantly branded a bigot. Later, it turned out the individual wasn't transgender at all, just a repeat offender exploiting a legal loophole. That's not progress. That's ideology overriding common sense.
I felt so bad because I bought the cover story when it was first reported, but I was wrong to buy it. I should have asked more questions. And that poor woman, she happened to be a Black woman who was complaining at the front desk of WeSpa. She was dragged through the mud when in reality, she witnessed this person fondling themselves in the women's locker room. Now, this person is not transgender. This is not an indictment of transgender people. It's an indictment of a policy that was not thought through. And as a result, there are women who are going to suffer. And as a result, there are transgender people who are going to suffer because people are going to make the mistake of thinking, oh, well, that guy was transgender and this is how they behave. No, this is not how they behave. We need to be smarter about these policies.
Maher and Anna Kasparian, who openly admitted she initially bought the media narrative, highlighted the damage caused by knee-jerk outrage. Women lose safe spaces. Transgender people lose credibility because of bad actors. And the media loses what little trust it had left.
First of all, good for you for saying that. I say it all the time. It's no shame to say, oh, I believe the cover story.
Yeah, I do.
Because the cover story just means that everybody has their own narrative. Nobody pursues the truth on either side. You have to work really hard.
Yes.
But since it's my job, I do, to get the full story. Nobody ever prints if you read the New York Times and the New York Post, it's like these two, it's just funny to do it because it's like, oh, I see what.
Which brings us to another target, the collapse of journalism. Maher joked that reading the New York Times and the New York Post back-to-back feels like entering two different universes, and he's right. Each side omits inconvenient facts, and somewhere in that omission, the truth disappears. That's the poison of modern media. Stories are shaped to serve narratives, not curiosity or skepticism. And when that happens, real people pay the price.
Hey, Rowling used to be a villain to the right because she wrote books about witchcraft. Now she's a villain to the left because she has the crazy belief that there's more to being a woman than pronouns and lipstick. So that was the point of the evening. How do we take a stand against cancel culture? And I suggested, since we were mostly all in show business, that we start an award show to honor the brave people who have fought back.
Rowling's story perfectly illustrates this cultural decay. She went from feminist hero to cultural villain overnight, not for saying something hateful, but for saying something unfashionable. Once, the right criticized her for writing about witches. Now the left wants her burned at the stake for saying womanhood isn't just a collection of pronouns. The irony is staggering. Maher pointed out how modern culture has turned moral purity into performance, where outrage is currency and victimhood is status. Rowling could have apologized, retreated, and kept her comfort. Instead, she stood firm, despite threats, backlash, and lost fans. That's integrity. And today, integrity looks almost radical.
Martha Pollack. This month, students there demanded trigger warnings before all the lectures in case any of the adult subjects you specifically went to college to learn about came up. And Martha said, yeah, no, we're not doing that. She didn't cave in or hire a new dean of sensitivity. She just said, no, college is for introducing you to new ideas, not for kissing your and making you feel wonderful and always right.
Her defiance sparked a ripple effect. Others started pushing back too, like Cornell University President Martha Pollack, who refused student demands for trigger warnings before every lecture. Her message was simple: you're adults now. College exists to challenge ideas, not to shield you from them.
When dozens of Netflix employees walked out over Dave Chappelle's reckless decision to perform comedy on his comedy special, CEO Ted Sarandos could have pulled the special and replaced it with more episodes of Who Wants to Watch Koreans Get Killed. But instead, he reminded his Netflix employees that comedy exists to push boundaries and told them if you'd find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the best place for you.
Maher couldn't resist turning that into comedy, joking about a generation somehow too fragile for uncomfortable ideas yet eager to prove how edgy they are. Beneath the humor was a hard truth: we've become a culture of contradictions. And nowhere is that clearer than in woke culture itself. The problem isn't the pursuit of equality, it's the hypocrisy. Compassion morphs into censorship. Tolerance lasts only until disagreement appears. Look at Netflix and Dave Chappelle. When employees demanded his special be removed, Netflix's CEO stood firm, reminding everyone that comedy exists to challenge boundaries. You don't have to like it, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't exist.
Emma is rightly free to disagree with me and indeed to discuss her feelings about me in public. But I have the same right, and I've finally decided to exercise it. I mean, mic drop, Stubergear. She could not have said this more perfectly, better, more powerfully, or more in a more damaging way for Emma Watson. She deserved every bit of scorn.
At the heart of all this is a deeper divide: real moral courage versus performative virtue. Hollywood overwhelmingly chooses performance. Likes, applause, headlines. Rowling's refusal to bend reminded people what courage actually looks like. It's not loud. It's not trendy. It survives cancellation, mockery, and isolation. As more people wake up, they're realizing constant outrage builds nothing. It only fractures trust and silences debate. Rowling cracked the echo chamber. She reminded us that disagreement isn't hate, and feelings don't replace facts.
Favorite line: I wasn't a multimillionaire at 14. I lived in poverty while writing the book that made Emma famous. Oh my God. It's so effective. Yeah. It's so good. F this woman. And her betrayal of J.K. Rowling when J.K. Rowling needed a friend, when she could have used just silence. If Emma Watson disagreed so mightily, and by the way, I don't believe she did. I believe she went along with the woke mob, just like all these actors do. There's no way she actually believes a man can become a woman. It's scientifically proven he cannot.
That's why Maher's commentary resonated so deeply. This wasn't just about Emma Watson. It was about an entire mindset that confuses signaling with substance. Real bravery isn't repeating what's trending. It's standing alone when the mob turns. Maher's message was simple: stop equating outrage with virtue. Learn to laugh again. Learn to think again. So yes, Maher roasted Emma Watson, but the target was bigger than one celebrity. It was every self-appointed moral authority ignoring their own contradictions. What do you think? Was Rowling right to stand her ground? Is Maher right about woke culture eating itself? Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more unapologetic commentary. Because real courage isn't trending, it's timeless.